Let's just skip a little bit. Last week we talked about the conflict of the body and the soul. Now we're talking about, when we talk about the various mitzvahs on Shabbos, we're really talking about all the things that are connected to the body. Doing things and eating on Shabbos, all of these things. But if you looked into the soul, if we were able to connect to our soul on Shabbat, there'd be no question that the soul would tell you, don't watch TV on Shabbos, because for the soul definitely realizes and knows that it's certainly not in the spirit of Shabbos. What's pushing us towards this? Even though we might be within the letter of the law, of course it's our own self-gratification. We want to get something done that makes us feel good. So we today. Yeah. Okay. So today we want to continue on that after. So today, the topic today that we're going to be discussing is getting high on the high holidays. Now, I hope that no one took this literally and then thought about, that's what you thought.
For the 60s.
All right. In that case, you'll have to stay after class 10, and you know what? We'll talk. We'll talk. But of course, getting high on the high holidays is we're talking about a spiritual high. And the idea was of how to prepare yourself, how to get yourself ready for Rosh Hashanah and for Yom Kippur. So in order for us not to go through another 3 days where it's business as usual and the Yom Kippur passes and we find that we haven't really changed, we haven't really moved spiritually from point A to point B. It's just the same old, and nothing ever happened. So we want to be prepared. We want to know how we can, what do we have to do in order to prepare ourselves so that, after Yom Kippur, we're able to say, this was inspiring. I really feel some kind of a connection. I want to move on the right path. That's really what idea is, this evening. And when we talk about a high, is really what we're talking about is connecting. To be able to really connect to the high holidays, to strengthen that relationship. Last week we talked a lot about our relationship with Hashem, that really what a Jew wants, his whole essence, is wants to just be part, to unite, to connect with God in a loving, caring relationship, with Him. We're going to have to talk about really a relationship between men and women, because it's very hard to understand really a relationship with the Almighty unless we understand a relationship between human beings. It doesn't have to be between a man and a woman. It can be between parents, it can be between brothers, it can be between any two human beings. But a relationship, you understand, between two human beings is always a give and take. Just to give you an example, when a man and a woman fall in love and they care for each other and they marry their wife, and the husband goes to the wife and he says, I love you. Now just those words, I love you, what really does that mean? When the husband says to the wife, I love you, well, what does that mean? It's really what he's saying, I think, in my humble opinion, is really what he's saying is, you fulfill me. You do something for me that no one else has done for me. And I really, really love you for that. You see, because what I need is, I need courage. I'm a chicken little. I don't have the courage to go out into the world and to succeed. And you have come into my life and you have brought fulfillment to me. Or, I was emotionally devoid. I had parents that never spoke to me, or mother that loved me too much, or whatever it is, and I'm just emotionally handicapped. I'm a cripple. And you have come into my life and you have shown me the beauty of all of this. So I love you really is what you're saying, is that what you have done for me. What you, the other person, whether it's the male to the female to the male, have really done for me. Those ways we can understand relationships between genders. Because normally, if you think about it, the institution of marriage is not normal. There's really no reason to have an institution of marriage, because it's not natural. Why would one guy want to hang around with one woman his whole entire life? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. By nature, men are hunters. They like to go out there, look for the deal. Every few years we change occupations. We start out being an engineer, then we go to medical school, we end up being an entrepreneur, then we go to pharmacy school, then we sell life insurance. And throughout our careers, we have a number of different occupations. How many people do you know that stay with one occupation? There are some. We had in Shul here in Long Beach. We had in Shul in Long Beach a man that worked for Boeing for 65 years. Okay, he started in Rockwell in 1930, and he ended up in 1995. They didn't even have a pin. Usually at the 50 mark they give you a pin. There was no pin for 65 years. But that's not normal. That's not natural. That's not natural. Natural is that usually we change, we like to switch around and change because why? We get bored easily, men. Because by nature we're hunters. We hunt, shoot the big cat, and then move on to the next big cat. You know, some people are farmers. They like to sit on one little plot. You know, when you plow, you thresh, you winnow, you go back to the same plot. But no, so why would relationships be any different? Why is it any different between men and women? Men and women would have one relationship. Then about 10 years down the line, you know, you say, thank you very much. It was a great experience, but now I want to experience something else, and keep going. The difference is that we look towards the other gender to fulfill us. And when you find that true love, when you find that one person that really gives you what you need, then I say, I love you. The same thing is true with God Almighty. With Hashem, we have the same kind of a relationship. We want to give Hashem something so in return He'll fulfill us. Now, why do we need fulfillment? Why do we need this kind of a relationship? Because there's a void within us. We know that there's something that is demanded of us to fulfill our destiny. And the only way that we will be happy, the only way that we will be fulfilled, is that if we live life to the fullest and fulfill our destiny, boom, then all of a sudden we could wake up and feel secure, and feel happy, and feel successful. But without that, there's a void that's always banging in our hearts. And our relationship with God will allow us to fill that void within our soul. At the same time, at the very same time, we have this relationship because we do the same for God. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Because in our minds, we've always been taught that God is ultimately perfect. Right? God is omnipotent, God is omnipotent, God is all-knowing, He is everything, He's everywhere at all times. Now when you have this kind of a being, it's very hard to explain why He would need human beings. I mean, if I have everything and I'm everywhere and I'm everything, then why do I need human beings? Why do I need to create this world? But there is something in the Almighty, to the slightest, to the smallest percentage of essence, that He needs us. He needs us. He created the world, and for some reason, He has given us an opportunity to fulfill Him. That when we do His bidding, when we go out there and say, you know what Hashem says, hey, do this, follow me, trust me, and we do that, even though He's telling us something that it's illogical, like crossing the Red Sea. Hashem says, trust me, you walk through the Red Sea, I'm telling you, you're going to be okay. Now, in our minds, when we're walking through the Red Sea, your Spinoza within you is telling you, you are absolutely insane. There's absolutely no reason why you are doing this. There is no power on earth that could get a rational human being to walk through the Red Sea. But yet, what are you doing? You're walking through the Red Sea, right? You're walking through the Red Sea. Why? Because in your heart, you have faith and believe, and say to yourself that you know that God has commanded you, that we have Moses, that God has commanded you, and by doing this, by suppressing your rational, logical, existential part of you, you have fulfilled God. All of a sudden, God in heaven smiles. You've heard that expression, right? Everybody is sure God is happy, God is, God did this, God did that. Now, I'm not going to stand here and start splitting hairs. I mean, how do you say God is happy if God is perfect? If something is perfect, then there's no happiness, there's no anger, there's no insult, there's nothing. There's nothing you can add to it. It's total perfection. So forget about that philosophical argument for a moment. Suspend that from your minds. Just think in your mind that what we do through the acts of God makes God happy, in some sense. And we want that. We want that. As the soul beats within inside of us, we want to make God smile. We want to have that relationship. I mentioned to you last week, Christians look for salvation. Because early on, they're drummed into their heads that there's something wrong with them. And there's something wrong, and only through salvation will they be able to fulfill whatever they need to do. Forever, eternal life. Okay, this is their kick. I'm sure Muslims look for something else, and Hindus look for something else. Jews look for that complete relationship with the Almighty. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm born on a blank slate. When I come out of my mother's womb, it's blank. The first 5 years, my parents have educated me. Hopefully they've done a half-decent job. I grew up, I'm mature, and now I'm in the prime of my life, and I know what I have to do. I want that relationship with the Almighty. That is what is beating in the heart of every single Jew, whether they know it or they don't know it. Because most Jews, if you ask them in the street, do you want a relationship with God? They'll shrug their shoulders. Maybe not. Most probably would say not, because it has too much attachment. Just like, if you say, I love you to a woman, there's a lot of attachment there. A lot of responsibility, if you know what I mean. No more, going out at night, no more carousing, no more cheating, no more doing this, no more doing that. It's, there's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of, sacrifice. Let's call it that. You sacrifice for the relationship. And both sacrifice for the relationship. If you're not willing to sacrifice for the relationship, then forget about it. The relationship is never going to work, because everybody has needs, and everybody wants the other person to fulfill their needs. And if my need is for you to stay close and to cuddle and to huddle and to muddle, and then you're out there running around, then it's not going to work. So if you want it to work, sacrifice. Why is it any different with our relationship to the Almighty? Sacrifice. We need to do something in order to fulfill our destiny and that which God wants us to do. Okay? And that, when we're able to accomplish that, when we're able to say to ourselves, I've done it and I've sacrificed it, now I have this relationship, that's a high. That's when you feel that completeness within your soul, that you are connected to something far greater than we can even imagine, even with human love. And then when you're in love with another human being, how you feel. That famous song, when a man loves a woman, he'll sleep out in the rain, in the cold, he'll do anything, give up his friends, give up smoking, give up everything for the love of a woman. Right? No one is saying right. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking to the wrong crowd here. I should be talking to the promise keepers. Those guys out there, the promise keepers. But everybody knows, for the love of another individual person, you give up everything. You're willing to give up the world, even though it doesn't make sense, because you want that. Because you want it so badly you can taste it. And hopefully you can maintain that kind of a high throughout your relationship. But most times, how relationships works? Vicissitudes. That which you feel when I'm 23 and she's 20 and I'm courting her and and I can't wait to talk to her, and then the phone calls come in and the rest of the world could blow up. Who cares? But I'm talking to my beloved, right? And I see, my daughter who just got married, Goldie, and she looks in the eyes of her husband. It's love. He tells the stupidest story, and she's like looking at him. Oh, like he's Einstein in 1905. Discovered relativity. I tell her, what, Goldie? I changed your diaper. You threw up on me. You never look at me like that with those eyes. I tell the most fascinating, incredible stories. Nothing. You're boring, you yawn, but your husband tells the most insane story.
Sounds like me and my wife.
Yeah. Right. Oh, which one?
Later.
Oh, no. I'm talking, which part of the relationship?
The whole thing. Throwing up on me.
Oh, yeah. That's the way it works. But when a husband speaks, I only have eyes for you. That's it. But my hope and my prayer is that this feeling lasts with them throughout their entire marriage together. Through thick and thin. Because because relationships are not linear. They don't go like this. No relationship sails on the smooth sailing. It goes ups and downs and ups and downs. And you hope and you pray that, with all the ups and downs, there's enough of an infrastructure. There's enough of a foundation to keep the relationship rock solid, even through tough times. Why is it any different with the Almighty? The Almighty, we have relationships with the Almighty that go up and down and up and down and up and down. Why? Because there's some days you feel so good, you feel so faithful, you really trust in Hashem. You know that, you're doing the right thing, and you can conquer the world. Your inspiration is sky high, and you daven in the morning with a lot more hislavut, with a lot more feeling and fervor. You put on tefillah with a lot more sense of accomplishment, and the rest of the day seems to go by 1, 2, 3. And then there are days when you want to if God was down here, you want to punch him in the nose. You'd want to literally punch God in the nose if you had a chance. That's why Judaism never tried to make God human, because they were afraid that they would punch him in the nose. Oh, you're God? Here, come here, I want to tell you something. Boom! This is for 3,000 years of persecuting us. How do you like that for God? and then a few more punches. But no, there's some days that you feel like you're so angry with God. And it could be just petty things, like me not winning the lottery last week. Oh yeah, why angry at him for not winning the lottery? Of course I didn't buy a ticket, but whose fault is that? God should have still made me win, still made me win the lottery. You know why? Why? Because there's a number of different, because why? Because as human beings, our emotions run high and cold, hot and cold, high and low, high and low. What is the secret of maintaining our relationship with the Almighty? If we know that in a human relationship, we have certain building blocks, such as trust, such as true, trust and love and caring and commitment and compromise. All of these things fall into this building material blocks that we have to build a human relationship. What are the building relationship with God that we need to have in order so when the tough times come and you feel like punching him in the nose, like every Yom HaShoah, every time you remember the 6 million, and today, once again, we thought about it with passing of Simon Wiesenthal, the conscience of the Holocaust passed away today. Again, you start to think to yourself and you get angry and all of these things. But so what gets you through? What gets you through is the understanding that there are certain fundamental ideals that we have in our heart that will never shake, even as angry as we get to God, will never be able to be shaken. And that, my friends, is really what we want to do on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. To be able to have an open mind and an open heart and look at God with trust, with compassion and commitment, in order for after Yom Kippur, we can come and we can say, you know what? We really felt something there. There was something there that I felt that I'd be able to take with me for the rest of my life. Like a good anniversary date. You go on vacation with your wife or with whatever, and after the vacation, after the honeymoon, you come back and you still have that good sense, and that sense lasts with you, that warm feeling lasts with you for a long time. Okay. How do we accomplish this? How do we do this? Because you see, we are unfortunately limited by our physical capacities. We have sight, and we have sound, and we have touch, and we have smell, and all of these things. So this is all good when it comes to a human being. But what do we do when we talk about God? When we talk about having a relationship with the Almighty? So I want to introduce to you to two concepts, two ideas that Kabbalah speaks a tremendous amount about. One is called Or, one is called light, and one is called Keli, a vessel, or Kli, a vessel, depending on how you use it. These two are probably the most common themes within the study of Kabbalah and Hasidus. The whole idea of light and vessel, of something flowing and as a receptacle being able to capture that flow. For years, many, many years, Kabbalists were faced with a problem of how to explain to the average Jew, not to another Kabbalist, but to the average Jew, the inner workings of Hashem. How does God relate to us? I mean, we talked about how he's perfect, and he's omnipotent, and he's up in heaven. That's great. So he's 10 billion miles away. We're down here, and we keep talking about a relationship. But how do we do that? He's up there, and we're down here. How do we connect, Rabbi? I mean, what do we just get a ladder, put it on there, start climbing the ladder, and we climb for 500 years, and we won't even be to the moon. We're barely to the moon. So how do we get up to God? So Kabbalists, and specifically, most importantly, Reb Yitzchak Luria, the Arizal, formulated this theory that God has within himself what we call emanations, attributes that emanate from him. Now again, it's very difficult, and I want you to suspect. You see, that's why you cannot be an engineer and be a good Kabbalist. Most Kabbalists did not go to MIT. It's no good. It's actually a hindrance to be an engineer. You've got to be an artist. You've got to let your mind flow free. Because if you start thinking about, emanations and light, and then you start thinking about the properties that create light, that's not good. Don't think about that. Just allow your mind to wander for a second. Just to be creative in a moment, and think of God as the sun. Think of him as the sun. Huge ball of fiery light, right? And from the sun, we get emanations that come out from the sun, right? Rays that come down to the world. Now, the sun is exactly positioned in the perfect spot for us to be able to benefit from it. If the sun was 1,000,000 miles closer, we'd burn up. If the sun was 1,000,000 miles further, we'd freeze to death. It happens to be the perfect spot where, at least in California, I'm not talking about Montreal, forget about Montreal, but we're talking about in California, the perfect spot of where the sun shines, and we're able as Californians to benefit from that sun. Why? Because as the rays go further and further from the sun, they decrease in their intensity until here, as a human being made of flesh and blood and sinews, we're able to accept and to receive the good graces and the warmth of those rays. And so we can tan, and we can grow crops, and we can read, and we can do all of the things that benefits us from the sun. The same thing is true with the Almighty. The Almighty is a great ball of fire, or whatever, a great spirit. And from that spirit emanates certain attributes flow out. And they flow from God himself. One of the attributes, for example, is chesed, is kindness that flows from him. How do we get kindness? How does he do something good with us? So let's say in his great domain, he opens up the book and he says, okay, Perelmuter is allowed 6 measures of kindness today, or whatever the thing is. So from within himself, he flows that kindness into me. Lets it go. This is called order. This is called light. In the world of Kabbalists, this is the vehicle of how God relates to us. This is the way the world was created through light. This is the way the world is sustained through light. This is the way the world will continue through light. How God punishes us through light, and how God blesses us through light. And how he communicates through light. Or Ein Sof. God himself is called the unlimited light. Unlimited, without end. There's no end to this light. He goes from one end of the universe to the other end of the universe, further than that end and further than this end. There's no end to his light. But what he does is, for our purposes, he limits himself. It means he has a little contraction. He goes and he takes his ultimate great light and he pulls it in together in order for us to be able to receive that, to make it beneficial for us. Okay? What are we? We're Kalim. We're vessels. In the beginning, it tells us in the Medrash that God tried to create the world in a certain way. He wanted it to be justice. He wanted the world to be created primarily upon justice. What happened? He created man. Man got up, went to the tree, grabbed the apple, bit from the apple, boom! A lightning rod came down, destroyed him. And he said, why should he not? Okay. So that ended that experiment very quickly. The world didn't last very long because justice is never too good, because we are not receptacles for that kind of justice. And the moment we sin, boom, we're gone. So God decided, maybe he'll create the world mercifully. But then there was no retribution. God was too nice. So what he did was, he created a world called Tiferet. Tiferet is like a rainbow. It's a combination of a number of different attributes together. He takes a little bit of kindness, he takes a little bit of severity, and he puts them together, and he creates this beautiful rainbow, this beautiful multicolored world called Olam Hazeh, this world. And within this world, he creates the human being. And the human being now becomes the receptacle. He now becomes the vessel for God's blessings, or, God forbid, for God's punishment. Because we have both. We have God when he likes us, he flows in that light of kindness. When he doesn't like us, he lets go his wrath, and he lets flow the wrath of severity, such as experienced by Pharaoh and the 10 plagues. What was God doing there? Every time he let blood come into it, what he did is that he let his severity just flow. The same thing he did with the grasshoppers, the same thing he did with the lice, etc., etc., etc. So now we can begin to get a glimpse of what it's like and how we can start with this connectiveness, how we can achieve this idea of unity and connectiveness to God. Because now we know the primary elements, the ideas that allow us to receive, and that light which is due unto us. And that's okay. This will give us a good time to say l'chaim. And this allows us the idea of receiving that kind of a light from the Almighty, and now we're ready to roll. Because now, so let's just reiterate just one thing here. Hashem is up there. We're down here. Great divide between God and human beings. How do we connect? Through rays of light. God emanates rays of light to the world. We are the receptacle. We are the vessels. God flows those lights into our vessels. And if we're open and if we're clean, then we receive the light. If we block it out, we won't get it. That's the key. You see this? This is a very important material. Why? Because it blocks out the rays of the sun. Now, sometimes it's beneficial. Like when we're filming, doesn't allow the glare of the window to interfere with the filming that's going on. In the morning, if Bob is sitting over there and the rays are coming in, this is great. But what if we want to read and we close the lights? Is this going to do us any good? No. This is going to be a hindrance to us. Why? Because the benefit that we're going to get from the sun is going to be blocked by this shield over here. So it's a no good thing. So we have to tear it down. We have to eliminate this. So in order to get the blessing, we have to push this thing aside. We understand what this thing is in a spiritual sense. We're one. We're the king. We know what we have to do.